even like, because sometimes there's podcasts that let you do live too. Oh, I need to turn off my notifications.
All right, we're good. We're on. Happy Tuesday, everybody. It is March 31st, and I am here with my good friend and accounting professional, business owner, SherrellTMartin of NitramFinancialSolutions. And for those of you that have watched a couple of these, the goal really is to disseminate information specifically for small businesses, but I think there's something probably for all businesses that could be a takeaway in some of these conversations as it relates to the climate that we're in right now. And I wanted to bring on a financial aspect to this because I think obviously there are financial implications to where we are right now in terms of managing staff and managing our businesses and the things that we need to know and the resources that we need to take advantage of while we are navigating this. But I also think that it's important to prepare for what happens after this situation kind of settles, whenever that may be, because having financial strategies in place is a critical part of business success. So I'm going to let Sherrell intro and give a little bit more about her business and what she's doing for small businesses. So Ms. Sherrell, it's on you.
Well, first, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you reaching out and I'm glad to be here. For those who don't know, I'm SherrellTMartin. I own and manage an outsourced accounting and bookkeeping practice called NitramFinancialSolutions. We're based out of National Harbor in Maryland. We work 100% remotely in the cloud. We work primarily with QuickBooks, but we also do a little bit of work with clients who have Xero. But we provide basically all outsourced accounting and bookkeeping services. So accounting is like the budgeting, the forecasting, projections, and cash flow management. Bookkeeping is the day-to-day bookkeeping, and then the consulting services, particularly around QuickBooks and other applications. I call it the ABCs of business: accounting, bookkeeping, and consulting. Again, we're 100% remote. So this shifting everything to this virtual environment is not new to us. We're just, it's every day. It's just everyday life for us. And we work primarily with business owners who have revenues between $500,000 and up to $5 million in revenue.
There you go. So the ABCs, I love that. I think I've heard you say that before. But yeah, that's something that's key. And all of those components are critical, really, no matter what size your business is, because I think you've got to, even if you're not ready to do all of the components of each, I think knowing that those are the things that are needed help you to kind of go into managing finances and accounting work eyes wide open. So you may not need every piece of it, but definitely need to know that they exist and that they've got to be, a component at some point of your business. So with the businesses that you've been working with, like, tell us like your clientele base, like who do you typically support? Revenues, but like, is there a particular industry that you work with, or do you have what's your main client base?
So we do have because I've been in business since 2012. And so we have a small little hodgepodge of different industries, but the industries that we primarily focus on are digital strategy firms. So those are your branders, marketers, branding, marketing, web designers, graphic designers. And then also, particularly, we've moved into healthcare. So ironically, in the midst of all of this, we work with what I call healthcare consulting. So they could be healthcare consultants who provide a service to other healthcare providers and centers. There's also healthcare providers predominantly who work with behavioral health services. So we have quite a few clients who provide, that behavioral health support for adults and minors. And then we work with medical billers who actually provide what they call revenue cycle management, which is basically processing and the claims and things from healthcare providers. And so they provide a service to the other clients that we work with. So we work with them as well.
Got it. Yeah. So what are some of the things that you're seeing now? And I would guess that one of them is people are probably a little crazed about making this virtual shift because we've not really had to be forced to do that before. And I was telling someone the other day, I said, the option of working virtual has always been fantastic. I know that if I couldn't finish something at the office or at a client site, I know I could go home and finish it up. But waking up and coming downstairs to the office to work in the house where my kids are also trying to do school and my husband's also trying to work, it's a little different. So managing a business that's got multiple employees, I'm sure making this shift, and we're in approaching tax season, I guess you could say. So people are trying to get stuff together. We got this 90-day extension. But what are some of the things that your clients seem to be most concerned or talking about, or are they concerned and talking about it?
So for our clients, it's about 50-50. So because we work with digital strategy companies, a lot of them already work in a remote setting.
Right.
And then there's some who work on site a lot at clients, but still have the remote kind of set up. And then we have another whole set of clients who ironically are quite a few baby boomers in our client base. Mm-hmm. And so shifting to online has been a little bit challenging for them. I think working with us might have helped it a little bit because we do all of our meetings. So people are like today, my daughter had a doctor's appointment. It was a telehealth appointment. Mm-hmm. And I called the doctors and I was like, I didn't get a link in my email. And she was like, oh, he's going to call you and then give you the link over the phone. And I was like, okay. She's like, do you know how to download Zoom? And I'm like, honey, I've been using Zoom forever, for years. It's not new news to us.
Right.
So some of them, I had a few clients who had some challenges with learning how to do that. But because they've never had to, be the person who initiated, they just clicked the link and logged in and saw me. Yeah. So probably the biggest shift but other than that, the biggest shift is just trying to figure out how to manage the people, because there are some people on a team who you feel like they can't do any remote work. So what are they supposed to do? So it's just trying to figure that out and trying to figure out how to pivot an entire business model. I was talking to a client yesterday and her whole model is on site. There are portions of her business that she can do remotely, but a good portion of it was on site work with corporations, and corporations are pretty much shut down at this point. So she's like, I got to do a complete 360 and I don't even know how to do it. And so my advice was, you have to figure out what the new problem is, what the new thing that you have to solve. You had figured out, this is the problem I solved. This is what I'm going to do for people. And now you have to figure out the new way to do it. How you got to shift. And that's probably the biggest thing is I would say people have to just be ready to just change. And at this point you can't be ready. You just got to do it.
Yeah.
Right. You can't, it's because we're already in the thick of it, but it's just being able to change and figure out if that wasn't your way of doing things, it's figuring out how to do your work now because you relied so much on paper or you relied so much on going to clients. Mm-hmm. And it's what do we do now? And I'm in most businesses, there are a lot of businesses that can't make the pivot. But in most businesses, you can do some form of remote something. Sure. You just have to figure out what it is. So it definitely gets your creative juices going.
Yeah. And that's why I think people are finding out things that they said they couldn't do because they didn't have to. They've now found a way, if they plan to keep doors open, that they can do a good portion of it that way. So from an accounting perspective, let's talk a little bit about because your business model has been remote, virtual services, cloud-based accounting services. So what are clients talking about from a cash flow management, I guess, the ABCs piece of what you offer? Are they seeing challenges now more, you think, or are some of the challenges would be the challenges anyway? Is there a shift in there somewhere because of what we're doing, or what the situation that we're in rather?
Yeah. So most of our clients, because we work with healthcare clients, their shift is mostly from a financial perspective, hasn't changed a whole lot yet. Like I probably won't be able to see it until mid-April, because like everything pretty much started to shut down mid-March. And so people have kind of made it through March, like by the skin of their teeth. They're like, we're gonna push through this. But April, I think, is where we're gonna really start see the effects of all of this on a lot of businesses. But from a cash flow perspective, it is a lot of the same problems. You know, not knowing how to manage it, not knowing how to project it forward. It's just exasperated because, you know, in a lot of cases, it's like now we have to lay off people. And especially in an industry where the people are what make the money. So if your people can't work, you can't generate the income. So it's just exasperated. It's just like, okay, so now if I have to lay off, you know, I have 60 people and I got to lay off 30, that's the revenue for those 30 people don't come in, but I still got to be able to support these other 30 plus, you know, still keep the lights on is what I call it, still pay the rent, still pay the utilities. So a lot of these things, you know, things that are coming out to help small businesses are great help in that aspect. So my biggest tip I'll probably say is like, you have to, so people have always been scared to budget. And I have screamed budgeting from day one. Like, you have to have a budget. You can't run a business without a budget. And people are like, I don't want to do a budget because I don't know what I'm budgeting. Like, I don't know what the numbers are. And a budget is just a guess. You're just guessing. So what I usually do is when I do my budget every year, I create three versions. It's kind of probably sounds overkill, right? So I create three versions.
It's your thing though, right? So
But I do. I create like, okay, so if nothing changes, no new clients, don't lose no clients, this is the budget. And then I create one like, what if I just blow the sky off of this thing?
Yeah.
What does that look like? And then I also create one that's like, well, so what if I lose a client or two? Because then it helps me think at a bare minimum, like how many clients can I lose? And some people might think that's thinking negatively, but for me, it's like I'm preparing myself as a just in case. Because if you know, we're as a small business owner, there's ups and downs. You never know when something's gonna happen. Nobody thought anything like this could ever happen.
Right.
This was the furthest thing from our mind. So now I'm looking at my plan that I had, that it was like, what if I lose one or two? It's like, well, what if I lose 4 or 5?
Yeah.
Because the reality is some of these businesses aren't going to be able to pull back out, unfortunately. Hopefully some of them will just shift. You know, it might just be a down spike for a few months, but that has allowed me to be able to see like, okay, so at a bare minimum, this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
So I can work around this budget. And then anything else is like icing on the cake. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But right now we just need to kind of survive. So it puts you in survival mode, but I was already prepared for a worst case type of scenario. It is a little worse than what I prepared.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. Right. But it's not like I'm not totally sideswiped. I just have to figure out what am I going to do in the alternative? Like, how am I going to still support the clients? Because for real, anyone who has a small business, like, while financially you might be thinking maybe I should stop my accounting services, like, you need them. You need them because you need that person to tell you on a regular basis, like weekly, monthly, whatever, what your cash is looking like, so that you don't end up in a bind later because you didn't have and you need a lot of cases, you know, a lot of people are reaching out because they don't have the financials to apply for all this funding, which is like tax season times 20.
Right. And that's actually a good segue too, because before we got on, we were just kind of talking about some of the resources that are out there, and there's tons. There's legislation, and then there's resources to back up the legislation. So there are multiple things. There's the SBA regular loan program, and then there's now this special loan program or grant.
Economic impact.
Yes.
Disaster. What's the acronym? Economic. I gotta look at the acronyms to make sure I say the words right.
They all have like 5 words. It's like really as if it wasn't complicated enough.
Exactly.
But yeah, so there's the SBA one that's specifically related to, supporting small businesses during this COVID-19 situation. The states have stuff through Department of Commerce, at least on a state level, but maybe there's something else. Or what we were both saying, like, I don't know, maybe there is like more to even that. Yeah. But I know that there are grants that are available through the states that are kind of helping that. And then what are you mentioned some of the other ones. There's a payroll something, right?
There's the Payroll Protection Program,
okay.
which is, and then there's the Family First Virus Response Act. There's the CARES Act, which is the one that most people are talking about right now, because that was the last one that was passed. And that's the one that's going to probably put money in people's accounts. And so everybody's like, how do I get it? How do I get it out? Again, it's like slow, it's coming. Hold on. Like, let us get a wrap around it. But, the one thing I want to say to people, because everyone is talking about SBA, mm-hmm. and SB, that's great that it's out there and people can apply for it, but don't forget about your states, because each state, a lot of the states, and it's, it's definitely specific to your state. A lot of the states have their own programs. Like Maryland has its own loan program and a grant program.
Yep.
And so, and I'll say that, like, don't overlook the grants because the amount of the loan is bigger. Because if you recall, grants is free money.
Correct.
You don't have to pay it back.
Exactly.
Right? Loans have to be paid back. So don't just push the grant to the side just because it's not because the amount that you can get is not as high. Apply for both. See what happens. Apply for all three. Apply for, what I would say is apply for them all.
Yeah.
And get it and see what you can get, and then decide which one you're going to take, because there are some where you can, and there's certain ones you can't take both. You can only choose one or the other.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it's not like you can apply for all of them and get all of them. No.
Right.
Apply for all of them, and then you choose the ones that's going to benefit you the most. And, definitely talk to your accountant or tax person as far as helping you, guide you through which one is the best choice for you. Because, everything that's bright and shiny isn't always good.
True indeed. And that's just general advice right there.
It is. It is. Well.
Yeah, exactly. And I did see, because I was actually on Maryland's site earlier this morning, and I saw that there's minimum requirements to even be able to apply. And people have done a really good job of kind of explaining it in a checklist up front for people, so you don't have to go do a whole lot of digging to find out if you even are going to spend time trying to apply.
It's very easy. I did the grant one myself. It was really easy. I was like, that's it?
Yeah. I think they're trying to make it that way because they've got the funding to give. And once this is done, who knows what happens with that funding. So they're trying to make it, as easy for people as possible, is what it seems, to be able to apply, so people don't get discouraged. I mean, it's enough of that going on. So all right. Let me see what I'm looking at my little notes that I have right here. So we talked about budgeting and forecasting that people should do anyway.
Yes, they should have already had that done, but most people haven't.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But, so, now that you're in it, and it's like, what do? I don't know. You can still create one now. You just create one from now moving forward. And it's just not going to be based off of what you originally thought on January 1.
Right.
What your plans were. It's going to be based on what is now your new normal, whatever that looks like, and planning forward. And I would say, one of the things we're offering, so we provide cash flow management services, but everybody doesn't take advantage of it. And so what we're doing during this for the next at least 60 days is that we're providing that resource to everyone. And so everyone is going to get a weekly cash flow projection, just so they can see, like how it's changing from week to week, because for some clients that's how often,
it's that frequent. Yeah, absolutely.
It's that frequent. It's, you know, monthly is not going to be monthly is going to be too late for in a lot of those
That's
cases.
right. And that's where you see like the shift. So that I was thinking about that question, like there's stuff that we normally do during the course of business on a monthly basis. Look at our numbers. We run reports on a monthly basis or at least a quarterly basis, you know, but now I'm hearing that you got to shorten those windows now because stuff changes so quick.
Yes, you definitely got to look at it more quickly, keep the numbers up to date more quickly, which is one of the benefits of what we do virtually, is because the whole point of being virtual is that you get real-time numbers. So it's not like, oh, I got to go back. You know, a lot of people were already in this boat of, I got to go back and put all last year's stuff in the system. And it's like, well, now what are you going to do? Because now you need to be doing it like every week, because you don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know. And, you know, depending on your industry, you could get hit really, really hard. And so, you know, definitely switching from a monthly to a weekly, looking at the numbers more frequently is definitely one of the biggest shifts that a lot of people, and for some people who weren't looking at them at all, you know, they're actually looking at them, because again, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when it's going to, and fortunately, there's a lot more businesses that seem to be essential than I knew about.
How about that?
There's some business I'm like, that's essential? Okay, go with it.
Yeah. So let's say somebody hasn't been utilizing like online tools, which I mean, I guess could still happen, but what are some of the online tools? You mentioned QuickBooks and Xero, but like, is there an online budgeting tool that, so if someone doesn't have like an accounting firm like NitramFinancialSolutions that does that kind of stuff, are there tools out there that they can use, online tools to do budgeting that are effective and work?
So there's a few, I'm sure there are some that do just budgeting. I usually use QuickBooks itself because QuickBooks has a budget in it. You can put your budget in it. But we use other tools as far as projecting and doing cash flow projections and so forth. So we take the budget. And so a projection for the person who doesn't know, because you might hear the term projection, you might hear forecast, you might hear pro forma. It all means the same thing. And basically what we're saying is you take your budget and then you just make changes to it based off of what's happening. Over 6 months, a year, 18 months, you know, at this point, I would say we're doing this almost every month to make sure that we know. I'm sorry if you hear all my little notifications.
That's okay.
I don't know how to stop those, but
Look, I'm surprised I haven't gotten any on mine. I haven't even bothered turning them on. It is what it is.
But we use, so one of the tools we use is called Cash Flow Tool, and it connects right to QuickBooks. So it pulls in all the data, it pulls in all the revenue, all the expenses, and then it actually calculates a forecast projection based off of the historical data. And so then we go in and say, okay, well, this isn't going to happen. So if we got a note that this client is no longer going to be a client, then we can go in and take that revenue out of the future months because the system has already put it in. Gotcha. So that you can see the effect and the change that it's going to have.
Gotcha.
There's a few other apps out there. I think Dry Run is one. There's one called Helm Cash, which I haven't tested yet, so I don't know how that one works.
Okay.
But there's a couple other that do it. So they say cash flow tools. I don't know of any that do just budgeting per se, like that's their specialty. It's usually embedded into something else and then usually masked as a projection or a forecast and not just a budget. But QuickBooks does, at a minimum, in QuickBooks, you can put your budget if you have the right version. So you do have to have the right version. But at a minimum, you can put your budget into QuickBooks and then take that budget and create duplicates. So you can actually copy it and save it as a new one and then make the changes to the new one. It's not as, like, you can't see it all together like some of the other systems, but it does get the job done. And then when all else fails, there's Excel and Google Sheets.
Yeah.
A little more manual, takes a little more time to build. Yeah. But it's possible. It's not impossible.
Okay. All right. So that's good to know. So like for QuickBooks, for example, if somebody, since it's built into the system already, the budgeting tools are built into the system already. So you can do one like you were saying, you do 3, right? So you can do 1 based on what you've got right now and let that projection kind of roll out if everything stays the same. And then you can manipulate and do another one. Take out your largest client, take out 3 of your smaller clients, or add a large client. You can do that and then just save that one. So then you can have those multiple projections to look at and see what may happen. And then that helps, I think. That's an eyes wide open kind of going into it unblind.
Yeah. And it's not being bleak. It's like, okay, so
right.
this is where we are now in the midst of COVID-19. So once this thing flips back out, like what needs to happen? What could it look like? What got pushed to later months? You know, what new potential opportunities do I have to kind of rebound? You know, assuming prayerfully that we're out of this before summer. Because, you know, a lot of these businesses who are just getting ready to get into their busy season, it's like, you know, think of it as busy season is just delayed because we are going to pull through this, right?
That's
right. Busy season is just delayed. And so they just need to shift everything back.
Right.
60 to 90 days and then see how the effect plays out.
How it looks.
Because then they may need to do something else in the later parts of the year when the seasons flip back down to make sure they still end up in a whole position.
Yeah.
But I tell, you know, that's all a budgeting. It's just a guess. Like no one really knows. People say when I say I do budgets, they be like, I don't know. It's just a guess. God, I'm guessing. I'm guessing and hoping and working. Like I'm making a guess and then working to make it happen.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I think too, it's people run from numbers. I know I do. I ain't even gonna tell a lie. Like come
to the lights.
I know. But you know, I think a lot of us, so it's not your area, you tend to run. So mine is definitely not numbers. So I know that I don't need to. I'm afraid of it. That's it. I'm just gonna say it.
But look, it's people like me who are like all that HR compliance. I'll be like,
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Let me tell you to call Stephanie because I don't know.
Yeah, that's I think that's what it is. Like if it's not our area, we tend to not want to dive in and get our elbows dirty with it. But now is like really a time to dig in. And even, you know, on the HR side, folks are freaking out a little bit. You know, clients are concerned for a lot of the same reasons that they're concerned on the accounting side. You know, they're concerned about their employees. They're concerned about what they can offer. They're concerned about what happens with insurance and benefits, and all that wraps into how they're going to project and budget for, you know, the budgets for the end of the, you know, going into the end of the year or going into the next quarter or whatever time frame they're looking at putting a budget together. But all those things matter. I think the silver lining in it is we're not spending money on travel. We're not spending money on gas. We're not spending, I can't say as much money on food because I know what my grocery bill looks like. But I think it's been split. We're not eating out as much. We're cooking more. So require more grocery. It's a shift in where the money's actually being spent. But I think we're seeing like all those things. So there's some silver lining in that from a cash flow standpoint, because there's things that we would normally be spending money on that we're not because we're homebound. But nevertheless, there's still, you know, expenses that have to be paid. Now we've got to beef up our systems. So that actually was another question I wanted to ask. Talked about QuickBooks and Xero. What other online tools, like financial tools, could a person or a small business take advantage of if they're not engaged with a financial management firm or an accounting firm? Are there things out there for somebody that's just starting? Because a lot of people like starting up stuff now. You know, now's the time, now's downtime. So they're looking to dive into, you know, doing some stuff on the side. What would you recommend for like those kinds of tools, if there are any out there?
I would say, so at a minimum, because we're in a virtual space, and from an accounting perspective, you know, outside of the accounting software, most of the tools that you would connect would be like a receipt management software. where you just scan the receipt, you take the picture of the receipt, and it scans it, it pulls all the data out of it, and then automatically pushes it to your QuickBooks file.
Okay.
Right? So, you can definitely scan with QuickBooks. But when you scan with QuickBooks, you do have to be able to code it on the spot, whereas with some of the other softwares actually do all of that for you.
Yeah.
And so we use Receipt Bank to do that. But other financial tools, I mean, if you are in an industry that tracks time, you will probably still need a time tracking system, even though the people aren't going out. If you still want to track time, you'll need an app for that. But outside of that, it's more of the operational stuff. We use Zoom for all of our, like I said, we've been using Zoom for years. So we use Zoom. We also use it's a Chrome extension called Loom.
Yep. Loom.
Where it sits on top of your Chrome browser, so we can take quick videos. So in the event that you're, new to this virtual space, you can't walk down the hall and show Susie how to do something. You have to you can create a quick video and then send it to the person that you need to send it to. We use Loom a lot. Like, I don't even, when I first found it, I was like, where have you been all my life? Because, I've used other tools that the process just was a little bit longer. So we use Loom. We use an app called Cognito Forms, which my friend Niall referred me to. And, we create forms, encrypted forms, so we put them on our website, or we can send them out to customers and clients, all kinds of forms, you name it. If you can create it, it can go in there. And there's integrations. And then we use Zapier to kind of integrate everything and connect everything to one another.
Got it.
So those are some of the tools, like from an operational standpoint. From a financial standpoint, making sure that they have an accounting system in place, and not just one that does invoicing only, because there are some apps that, and I won't name names, but they only do, they're really designed for project management. And so they track time and then let you create invoice. But I always tell people, but you have other expenses in your business that you need to be caring for, you need to be accounting for. So having an accounting system like QuickBooks would help with that. So at at the minimum, you can come in at the lowest tier and then work your way up until you need a higher tier. But other than that, I'm trying to think of what else I gotta look at my little stack to see what else.
Well, so now we don't do it as much anymore. But once things kind of turn around, like a mileage tracker too.
QuickBooks does it. Oh, yes. That's like the newest thing this year. So I used to use an app. I mean, I still kind of do because I haven't deleted it yet. But, there's all kinds of apps that sit outside of the software that track apps. Well, the earlier part of this year, QuickBooks added, or maybe it was the end of last year, they added a mileage tracker to the app. So you just have to turn it on and it does the same thing. It tracks your app. So you don't even need a separate app anymore for that, which is like so awesome.
So when you that's what I've always wanted, because I'm trying to remember what I did. I don't remember what I did. I've used one before, and it was a couple years ago, and I was really good about it, and then I kind of fell off of doing it. But so when you turn the app on, the mileage tracker app on your phone in QuickBooks, it is tracking your stop and start.
Yes, it tracks your start. So it tracks the movement of your phone, which typically is with you. And I don't know how many people are going to be using this now that we're virtual, but at some point when we go back into the real world, so it's basically tracking the movement of your phone. And so as long as you have your phone with you at all times, which most people do, it tracks everywhere you go. So you do have to go in and say, this was personal, this was business, this was personal, this was business.
Okay, but it tells you.
You have to go in and do that. And it's usually just a swipe. So nothing too complicated. You do have to go in and do that. And so, but at the end you can, so I haven't tried, I don't know if you can email it from QuickBooks. I haven't tried that, but I know the other app I use, what I would usually do is I would go through the whole month and then I would email the report to myself so that I will have a record of it. And then I have it for the end, for tax purposes as far as that goes. But you do have to go in and say, this is personal, this is business. So that you have a track of it. Yeah, but it's just a GPS on your phone is what it's using.
Okay. All right, that's cool. What else is out there? We've talked about all kinds of resources and crisis. Stuff that businesses are dealing with. If you had kind of like one or two like ending points, tips, advice, what would you say to small businesses? Like for now, like we're in this now, and then what would you recommend for coming out of this? Like what advice would you give to the us's of the world that are out there trying to navigate this thing?
Right. So for now, I would say pivot. Like figure out, like we keep talking about new normal. Figure out what your new normal is in your business. What is the new problem that you solve? What is the new need? That's what I call it. I keep trying to think of, what did I say to her? I said the new need. So every business, we're in business because we solve someone's needs.
Right.
So you have to figure out what that new need is for your clients or potential clients, and then how can you deliver it in this new normal environment. And it's some cases it may be a complete pivot, it may be a partial pivot, it may be, in a lot of cases, like, all that thing I've been saying I was going to do for so long, I guess now I can finally do it because it wasn't a requirement to be virtual, right? It was something that you could do to help you be virtual, but it wasn't really. Now it's more of a priority. So do that thing now. Like you'll have no more excuses to do it. So get it. So you were trying to create something in that virtual space, like now's your time to do it. So I would say, that's my tip for the now. Figure out what the new need is that people need that you can solve.
Okay.
I was on in a meeting yesterday, and Sharon Washington was the facilitator, and she was like, she made a good point. It was like, everything is online now. Like everybody's online now. So don't stop marketing, beef up your marketing, because everyone is paying attention now.
That's right.
Everybody's trying to figure out what to do.
That's right.
So, figure out the new need, keep market to that, so when we do come out of this, you're the first person that people think of.
Yeah.
That comes to mind. And then as far as how to get out of it, or when we get to the other side, probably I would say, like, make sure that you put into place where there's a strategy, a plan, as a just in case measure for the next time.
Yeah.
So we always talk about, on a personal side, make sure you have a savings account, because you never know when there's going to be a rainy day. It's the same thing in business, and a lot of small businesses don't have a savings set aside for a rainy day. So, make sure you put into place things that can help you prepare for whenever the next one is. Hopefully no time soon, but who
knows, right?
It's election year, and we got this thing going on, and you don't know. So I would say, make sure that you put in place things that help you prepare for whatever the next thing could be.
Yeah.
And do that. Like, don't be afraid to make changes and choices and decisions because you're scared, because you end up waiting till it's too late. And then, you might pivot too late. You might do something too late. You don't change until it's, don't wait.
Yeah. Because then you put yourself in a really scary situation. Yeah. I mean, I know the fear of the unknown is real. Like, I think that's
definitely,
that's a real thing. But when you get faced with the reality of the fact you could have made a better decision, even though you weren't exactly sure how it may turn out, now you're faced with, I may be out of an opportunity to pivot at all.
Exactly.
This could be done completely.
Exactly.
So, or be done to the point where now it's no longer relevant. It doesn't solve a need anymore because so much has changed. And I was afraid to, put a plan in place to make a pivot just in case, or plan to make a pivot in the event that something happened, or, didn't want to save it because I needed it now. I think we all kind of deal with that on a personal level and a business level. We just, kind of are in the now so much now that it's hard to do that planning and taking the time. But you're right. Like, we've got a lot of time to think about the impact that this is having globally. I mean, on a personal level and a business level. And then what can we do to prepare so that we don't get caught so off guard from an operational standpoint, at least. Personal is, that's different, I guess, in this respect. But from an operational business standpoint, how can we keep things kind of flowing and keep things afloat. And like you said, keep the lights on, and still take care of things we need to take care of and be relevant.
Yeah.
So.
And do what you can as long as you can. Don't try to be like, oh, well, I'm going to apply for this funding, so I'm not going to do nothing. I'm not going to pay nothing. I'm not going to,
right.
I'm just going to, while you do need to be cognizant of what has to pay and try to plan it out, don't just be like, I'm not going to pay nothing and then wait to see what happens. Because, there are requirements to meet the loans. And so you do have to make sure that you qualify. So, still do what you can, still try to operate as much as normal as possible.
Yeah.
Because you might not be affected at all. You just never know. There are some instances where someone may not be completely affected or affected in a way that makes a big difference. So, don't just be like, oh, and that's on a personal and a business side. Like,
sure.
Because, people are like, oh, I'm going to get this check. I don't need to pay my mortgage. Or I see people saying, like, they waiting for the mortgage company to say that they don't got to pay. Like, why? If you have it and you're still getting a check, like, that's because when it's time to play catch up, it's going to be harder.
Yes, it is. And it will be time to play catch up.
When they say, because, I don't know why, but I just think that, like, with mortgages, I think they're going to come back and say, okay, so now you have an option to pay it all, the back pay, or we tack it to the end.
Yeah.
And so, some people might not want to tack it to the end.
Yeah, exactly. There's never free. Well, I guess grants would be our one form of free money. But when you talk about instruments that have been financed, there's no free money there. Like, they're not letting you they may just pay delay, but they're not letting you get away.
It's a smoke screen. And you're not completely off the hook.
That's correct. That's correct. And God, want to learn that lesson the hard way. So,
but just plan, prepare, figure out the new need, and then how you can pivot to solve to that.
Yeah.
And we should all come out on top in the end. I pray that we all come out on top in the end.
Yeah. I think it'll be enlightening. We will have been stretched in ways that we did not know. So hoping that this also presents some resilience for people, and some personal and business growth for people, mindset wise, that you really can do more than you thought. I mean, this is taking, I think, everybody out of the proverbial comfort zone.
Definitely.
So, this,
and you know what? It's because they can't say, oh, well, I'll go get a job, because nobody's working. So you're forced to figure out how to make it work.
That's right.
You don't have a choice. And so, yeah.
Well, this has been good stuff, my friend. I appreciate you. And let everybody know how they can find Nitram Financial Solutions. Where are you? Virtually.
So they can find us on the web. On the web, it's just NitramFinancial.com. I think I bought both, though. I think if you type the whole thing, you still get to me.
Okay.
You can find me I'm mostly on Twitter and Instagram at SherrellTMartin. You have to put the T, because if you don't, you'll find somebody else. I find my name way more popular these days than when I was growing up. But that's where you can find me. That's where I'm at the most, on Twitter and Instagram, and then LinkedIn. I dip and dodge out of Facebook, so you might not find me on here too often. But if you come on Twitter, I'm there predominantly most of the time, probably more than I should be.
Okay.
I don't know why I like it. I just like it so much.
Yeah, it's the newsroom. It's like full of information all the time, and I mean, it's it's a great place to a great platform for that immediate kind of. I mean, now I think everything has just become like
even more. It's like hyperspeed.
Yeah, exactly. But Twitter is great. Instagram is great. They're all, they all serve fantastic purposes to be able to reach what we can, more than what we can do on an individual level. They just, make it a lot easier to connect and be a resource for people. So I thank you for being a resource.
You are very welcome.
Yeah, from the financial management standpoint, and supporting small businesses now and prior to the situation and post the situation. So thank you for that. And I will share this. If you guys are watching the replay, thank you so much. Feel free to share the replay out as much as you would like. Make sure to tag both Sherrell and I in your comments. And if you are looking to connect with us, you can find us, as Sherrell says, she's Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, mine much the same. Probably LinkedIn more than Twitter, but Instagram on all three platforms. And of course here on the HR Pro for You career, HR Pro for You consulting page here on Facebook. So thank you again. I appreciate it. And Sherrell, I will catch you on the other end.
See ya.
All right, take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.